Now I'm going to be talking to Donal O'Connell from Nolan, Farrell and Goff Solicitors in a minute. Firstly, a nice message in from Jamie. His little boy James Dalton wanted to say thank you. I did a little gesture for him yesterday. I met him in Centre on the Quay and he's delighted and feeling better. He fell. So hope you're feeling well and keeping good. Mind yourself. That's to James Dalton. Happy birthday to our mam Noreen Skelton, Ash Road. Can't wait to celebrate with her when all this is over. Lots of love, Lorraine, Nicola, Barry and Andrew, and all the way from Oz, Andrew all the way from Oz, from grandchildren as well, Billy, Kate, Joey and Sam, and Kim Bergen, who's 16 today. We had her on our show a few months ago. Kim has cystic fibrosis and hasn't been out for a few weeks, but she's keeping well. That's from her dad, Stan. A text in, I was at Maxi Zoo yesterday, seemed to be a lot of cars around. Are people travelling beyond the 2 kilometre distance? Kevin has texted in as well. People, please be conscious. Pick up your gloves, your rubber gloves or masks that you throw out the window or you put around. Cleaners have enough to do. You're right there, Kevin, on that. Donal, good morning.
Good morning, Damien.
Thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Good to talk to you. I'm well, coping the same as the rest of the country, I suppose, doing the best we can. Isn't that it, to get on with things?
That's it. You're managing partner of Nolan, Farrell and Goff Solicitors. You're 45 years in business this week. Congratulations.
Thanks, Damien. I suppose the plaudits really belong to the founding fathers of the firm, who brought the whole concept together back in 1975. There's a lot of credit due to them. There was a lot of effort, and foresight and enterprise, I suppose, on their part at the time. So it's an achievement, and it's great to be functioning still 45 years later.
Tell me a little bit about the name, firstly, in terms of...
Well, the name, yeah. The roots of the firm go back much farther, in fact, than the 45 years, Damien. Back in, would you believe, 1914, George Nolan, so he's the Nolan in Nolan, Farrell and Goff. George Nolan set up practice in the city for the first time. And I think in 1920, then a few years later, Richard Farrell put up his brass plate for the first time, again in the city. And they grew their firms and operated away, I guess, as competitors and rivals for the succeeding decades. Then in the 1950s, late 1950s, the late John Goff joined George Nolan, and they carried on practice down in offices in 83 The Quay, just close to the AIB Bank there on the Quay. And a few years later, Ian Farrell joined his father, Richard Farrell, and they became Farrell and Farrell, and they were joined by the late Jim Mulhern, and they carried on business at 33 Georgia Street for a number of years, and that's next door to where Teenage Doolins are. So then in 1975, those were the original 5 founding partners, Damien. They've all passed on at this stage. They're Shlina Fearinga, Ganena Dia Troker but they were the founding partners. I was a very young junior solicitor, just qualified about a year at the time. And in fact, just a year before that, had got a job, my first and only job as a solicitor at Farrell and Farrell. And so within a year, having thought that I'd come to a modest, relatively modest family-style practice, I was parachuted or propelled into this great monolith that became Nolan, Farrell and Goff. And they made me a partner a few years later. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. It's a partnership, a solicitor's firm, which is very, very high standing and reputation, covering a lot of big cases over the years as well, and then also dealing with people individually and wills. That's
right. We're
a gamut.
Pride ourselves, yes, on having providing a very broad range of services. We hope never losing the individual touch, if you like, and client contact and individual client contact is essential to us. And on the other side, then we act for corporations, public bodies, doing commercial transactions, and at the other end of the scale, doing small transactions. I suppose we'd still say no job is too big or too small, and I think that would have been one of the mottos of the late John Goff anyway. He hated to see any work going out the door or not being captured.
How are you managing at present, Donal, in terms of one, your own work? I know a lot of solicitors anyway would work individually, but in terms of meeting clients and things like that, how have you coped and adapted to the current situation?
Well, we're obviously, Damien, we're subject to the same rules and restrictions as other businesses. It's subject to the same government regulations so far as travel and social distancing is concerned, with a few exceptions. So, but in fact, just after Patrick's Day, when we came back the day after Patrick's Day, we started to evacuate, if you like, the offices at Newtown. So we were a bit ahead of the lockdown, which happened, I think, on the 28th of March, was it, or thereabouts. And we set up our solicitors and our other staff, where possible, with remote workstations, so that they could all work from home. So by the time the lockdown happened, we had a system stuttering a bit, but up and running. So we like to think that Nolan, Farrell and Goff is still open for business in the virtual sense.
Yes.
It's a bit of a battle, like it is for everybody, but it's got easier. And I suppose if the cloud is a silver lining, the likes of myself have learned quite a few new technological tricks in a hurry over the last couple of weeks. And for somebody who didn't know what Zoom was 2 months ago, I'm now a seasoned Zoomer. And that's just to answer your question, that's obviously how we keep in touch with each other, and indeed in touch with clients, phone and video conferencing. And where would we be without it? We just couldn't function.
Are the courts operating?
They are. Well, the district courts, I'm told, sit as scheduled, but are obviously dealing with limited cases, essential cases, I suppose. Criminal cases obviously come to mind. Lots of those where you have people in custody. Those have to be dealt with as a matter of urgency. And Nolan, Farrell and Goff, we act for the Child and Family Agency, TUSLA, and the courts are still hearing those childcare cases, obviously. On the civil side, Damien, the courts are not sitting here in this area, certainly at the moment. The next scheduled circuit court civil sittings we have are scheduled for the end of May, and we live in hope. Who knows? And of course, the High Court, which is a very important event in Waterford twice a year, is scheduled to sit here at the end of June. But nobody knows at this stage. It's a wait-and-see matter, isn't it?
Yeah. And there are people obviously waiting for court cases that, if they're being put back, it can cause stress, can't they? I suppose the advice is just to hold on and stay witchy.
Stress and inconvenience. And, if there are urgent cases, the courts will deal with them. But the bar is fairly high, as you can appreciate in the present circumstances. The definition of an urgent matter is fairly narrow, and I'm not aware of any of them that have been dealt with here, certainly in this area, since the lockdown started. Okay,
Donal, to you and everybody in the firm, continued success.
Right. Jamie, if you just give me 2 seconds, I know I'm not going to spin the wheel, but I just said I'm the only solicitor in the firm now who was there on the 28th of April 1975, but there are two other staff members, Damien, who reported for duty along with me on that morning.
Give them a mention,
and they're still with the firm,
yes.
But I haven't seen them for weeks, obviously, because of lockdown. Mary Heffernan and Tony Den. So I'd just like to say hello to them and to wish them well. And indeed all the rest of the Farrell and Goff staff, if I can. Thanks for all their hard work, and hopefully we'll all come together again soon.
Yes, and to Mary and Tony especially. Well done. Donal, very well said. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Damien. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Donal O'Connell there, managing partner with Nolan, Farrell and Goff Solicitors, whom a lot of people, not just in Waterford, but in different parts of the southeast would know. They've done Trojan work over the years, and continued success to them and to everybody working there within the firm. And a special mention, as you heard Donal say, to Tony and to Mary. And a text in from Kathleen in the city. John Goff was a third gentleman whom I had the pleasure to know. His son John, another gentleman. The apple didn't fall far from the tree. Dick from Listuggan has asked about only 7 passengers allowed on buses. Would it be better if they stopped the buses altogether? Another texter saying in different parts of some estates around Waterford City there can be teenagers around in groups. What's happening there? And another texter said the same thing about social distancing. Will you wish Dimpna O'Shea, please, a very happy birthday today? She's a celebration, very special one from all her friends in Portlaw. Great show as usual. Thank you very much. We had a lovely text in from Francis. Damien, just want to thank you for your coverage regarding the Defence Forces. It was great to hear Shelley on today, and speaking from a family's point of view. My husband is waiting to go to the Lebanon, and while I understand the reason for the possible delay, Shelley is so right. It's the lack of communication that is atrocious. We just want to be kept in the loop from official sources and not from newspapers. I have 4 children preparing for their daddy to go away, and not having a date for them is frustrating, especially my 10-year-old who is more aware. Well, that's why we're trying to cover it and keep the coverage up and keep the awareness up and keep the pressure on, if that's some way of doing it, to make sure that people are aware of what's happening, and if they want to contact their local TDs or councillors to get in touch, please, with the Minister for Defence. As you heard, Paul Kehoe did come on the programme the other day to explain the government's perspective on this. But keep your texts and comments coming in. 083 3333 975, and somebody phoned in to our phone number 051 846 123 to say we don't need the contact tracing app. Sure, everyone is reporting on everyone else's movements all the time now. The footpaths in Ardmore are full of dog poo, and walking there, dogs, it's very, very difficult, says Frank, down in Ardmore. Going to talk to Brendan Halligan in a second. We've got a number of texts from different relatives and soldiers listening to the programme this morning, just to say thanks for highlighting this. Ian Sage has been on to text. He's doing a special walk, a 5-kilometre walk on the 9th of May to raise funds for Pieta House. They're going to be getting up at 4:15 in the middle of the night, sort of an equivalent to a darkness into light thing. So you can check it out on Facebook and see what the story is there. Damien, just a suggestion for junior cert students: use 4th year to run the exam and do the transition year to a lesser extent, so they don't lose touch with those studies and those students going into 5th year. There is one suggestion there on that. Damien, how can we all be in this together when the only ones that are really suffering are the over 70s? Everything has been taken away from us. And that is from Angela. Please get this into some perspective, says this texter. There's only 1 in 850 people in Waterford have had this, and most of those, a mere 138 have recovered. Why does the media perpetuate the misery by only painting the worst case scenarios? So this person is saying that is a lot better there than that. Damien, the points I was trying to make in my comment are regarding this, is because parental responsibility regarding teenagers blatantly disobeying restrictions, the lack of concern with some teenagers spreading the virus among their own families, and it seems, could the Gardaí be doing more on that? And that is from a texter. Now I'm going to go straight to Brendan. Good morning, Brendan.
Good morning, Damien. Hope you're keeping well.
Good, thank you. Yes, Children's Group Link. You've noticed a marked increase in requirements for one-to-one supports and interventions over the past number of weeks. Tell me about this, please.
Well, basically, since the lockdown came into effect, our services have been restricted insofar as that we're not allowed to have any group gatherings of any description. We're not allowed to have any activities, for all the obvious reasons that have been stated. So much of our work has been undertaken online, digitally, through different platforms, and we've been doing a huge amount online with our members, Facebook, websites, all the Zoom, house parties, all that different stuff. But we've noticed we have 2 of our staff are specialised in dealing with one-to-one interventions. Now, when I say interventions, they're not always crisis interventions, right? They're interventions with young people who require additional supports for issues that they may be experiencing. But we've noticed over the last month or so that the requirement for those one-to-one interventions, and incidentally some of them have been crisis interventions, with some of our members, have shot through the roof in terms of young people in need of supports, crying out, difficult situations. And I don't want to go into too many details, but some of it is home situation. There may be some domestic violence there. There's issues around their mental health, well-being, and for a period, the young people were being unfairly targeted by the media in terms of them breaking the restrictions earlier on. Yeah. And the evidence showed that actually there was more adults doing it with house parties than there were teenagers.
Yeah, we still get that, and some people text in, they'll see, and I suppose if you've 2 or 3 teenagers together, it might stand out like a sore thumb compared to 2 or 3 adults maybe walking along, and maybe some people have this perception, as you say, but the facts, and the government have given these figures, show differently in some respects. We've heard a lot of anecdotal evidence. Brendan, can I ask you again? You can't go into, you can't reveal any personal, I suppose, stories. But can you give me a more of an indication of the pain that some people are going through that are calling your service?
Okay, so some of the stuff is around some of the young people that we would deal with would be vulnerable and would be particularly vulnerable in terms of their background or circumstances, okay? Not all of them, by the way, only some of them, okay? And in the situation where they feel that they're forced to stay in, where they can only go out for, we say, 2 kilometre walk, they can't see their friends, very often their main types of support for some of these young people are outside of the family unit. Okay, some of us are lucky enough that we have supports within our family units, but there are young people out there whose best supports are outside of the family units, and that could be with their friend, it could be with youth groups, it could be through the arts or sports or whatever it is, and some of them have become desperate because they feel they can't talk or make a cry out to their family members. Now, that's not an indictment on family members, because that's just the way society is. Some people are better at providing support than others. Some parents are better than others at parenting and have better coping skills, etc., etc. So some of the young people that we're dealing with are those that are just finding it really, really difficult and stressful to be locked up. Now, I know somebody could start ringing into your programme and saying, like, everything in perspective, that we've the elderly who have to cocoon, which is very hard on them. There are people getting sick. There are people dying. We know all that. But I'm talking about a sense of perspective in all this. And the reality is, I can only talk about from my work as a youth worker and from a charity dealing with young people and families, is that there are a lot of young people who are going through difficulties in terms of their own mental health, the situations at home, a lot of them under pressure in school. I have a son who's actually due to do his leaving cert this year. He's feeling under a lot of pressure with having to work from home. Don't know what, it's still all up in the air. I know they've set a date for the leaving cert. So you have all those things going on for young people, and they're finding it very difficult.
Yeah. Another issue, I suppose, the financial supports or lack of supports for charities and those in the voluntary sector.
Well, Damien, I'm just going to say this, that the Wheel carried out a study recently, and they reckon that the Wheel, they operate for the non-profit sector, and the loss to the charitable sector in Ireland could be over 500 million. Now, here's the issue for many charities. I have to say that we're funded primarily from the Department of Children and Youth Affairs through the Waterford and Wexford Education Training Board, and we also get some funding from the Department of Community and Rural Development through PUBL. And both those departments have been extremely supportive to this sector in terms of funding. I have to say that first off. Okay, they've been very supportive. However, the problem for many charities and non-profits is that they must fundraise, or what's termed gather earned income to keep their operations afloat. Okay, so the grants we get from government won't sustain our organisation, as an example. So we need to fundraise in the region of 120 to 140,000 each year on top of the grants that we get. And why do we need to do that? So I'll give you one example. So our insurance cost, I'm happy to say this, is nearly 20,000 a year excluding our vehicles. 20,000 euro, 18,800 per year. Okay,
wow. Yeah.
The government fund, the grants that we get towards that allow for about 5,000 of that. The rest we have to find the money through the generosity of the public or through businesses and sponsorship. And I have to say, insofar as that the government can be commended in many ways in the way that they handle this crisis, not in all the ways, because I have some issue with some other stuff that I don't think they dealt with very well, but in terms of the supports for the charitable and non-profit sector for overheads, they've been slow. They've been very slow, and they've offered, like Britain announced, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, 900 million euro in extra supports for the charitable and non-profit sector for overheads. Now, again, I want to say that the government departments have been very supportive in terms of sustaining the grants, and I have to be commended for that. PUBL, DCYA, WWETB, Department of Community, and many Department of Justice, loads of them. But there's had to be a very slow response to meeting the needs of the charitable and non-profit sector in terms of all the other overheads. Like, we've had to initiate emergency measures here in GroupLink to save 20,000 in a 3-month period, which includes significant pay cuts for staff, by the way. They've been forced to front up, and cuts in other stuff, overheads. We've had to come to agreements with our bank in terms of loans, and our creditors have to be very good, I have to say. And I know people have had some poor experience, but our experience with the bank has been good, I have to say, and with creditors. But the non-profit sector is like the fabric of our society, Damien, as you well know now better than most, in terms of the supports they provide. Soccer clubs, rugby clubs, GA clubs, those that are dealing with cancer supports, youth clubs, art groups. All those are going to need supports as much as businesses, small, medium businesses are going to need supports, and we know that families are struggling. But the charitable sector can't be forgotten about either.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Brendan, if anybody wants to get in touch with Children's GroupLink, phone numbers or through the internet, what's the best way?
The best way is to check us on Facebook or our website, and they get all the contact details there. And can I say this now? That we're not just there to support those that are core members. We have about 100 core members of Children's GroupLink. But if there's any parent or any young person struggling, go onto our website, check out our Facebook page, and we will deal with any issues that come about sensitively. And if need be, we'll pass on young people to the relevant professional authorities if that's required. But very often a young person just needs somebody to talk to. And some of our staff up here are the best in the business in terms of talking to young people and being able to reach out to them at their level. Brendan,
to you and everybody involved, take care.
And Damien, well done. You're doing a great job during this crisis there, WLR. Well done to you all there.
Trying our best. Thanks very much, okay. Brendan. Take care.
Damien.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Brendan Halligan there, Children's GroupLink. And you heard the details and how to contact them. A very, very good organisation, and a lot of charities and voluntary groups doing great work. Good morning. Any update on the charity shops taking in bags of clothes? As I mentioned earlier, somebody had put up that Ferrybank GA Club are taking in bags of clothes and then working them or getting them through to the charity sector. Good morning. The government is going to have to step in and help the invaluable work that charities like Children's GroupLink provide. Charities right across the country do tremendous work at a small cost, says Pat. Fair play to Brendan for highlighting this matter. Can you endeavour to get a response from the government? We will, Pat. Another Pat in Tramore says, I'm living in Tramore. I don't see teens around. I'm still working in a shop in Waterford, and again, I don't see teens or groups of teens around. Can't say that for some adults, though. There's some adults from different households that go swimming around the Gillamine in different places. They're not the usual seasonal swimmers, and it seems a bit silly and a bit stupid, says Pat. And that takes in the idea of staying at home and staying at a social distance. Another texter, why can't people get into their heads that staying at home is good for their health and is for their own good? Another texter, good morning, I walk in Ardmore most days and I've always find the streets very clean and there's no dog poo. There's huge amounts of signs saying dog fouling will not be tolerated on the road or in the village. Good morning. A question: older people are not forced to stay in their homes. It's suggested that they do so for health reasons, said a texter. And I got a nice message in from the Sinn Féin councillor, Breda Brennan. Good morning, Damien. As Mayor of the Metropolitan District of Waterford, I'd like to thank everyone who is following the advice of the experts. I'd always like to thank all the frontline staff, the over 70s and communities who are showing the true meaning of community spirit once again. Thank you to WLR and all other media during these strange times. And that is in from Breda Brennan. I got a text in from a soldier in the Lebanon to say keep it going as best we can. I won't go to my local beach because every Tom, Dick and Harry would be down there, says this texter, if and when they do open. If it was normal summertime, I would go and have a barbecue at the back and not for a walk on the beach. Keep your texts and comments coming in. Next, we're going to be talking about weddings and marriage. Now, we want to hear about weddings. We want to hear about Catholic weddings and ceremonies and Would you, or are you a person that is intent, if you are getting married, looking at a church wedding? Because there's new figures out. I'm going to talk about those in a second. Good morning, says this texter. I'm just a little bit frustrated. Responsible people can't go to the gym. Restaurants, many shops, including DIY stores, even going 2 kilometres from their homes. Yet some teenagers seem to be able to go out and about whenever they want, says this other texter. Can you please wish our son Trevor Prendergast a very happy birthday? He's 1 in a million. We love you so much. And that's a lovely text in from that person. And another person, could you please wish a happy birthday to Helen Troy in Viewmount? Lots of love from, I think it's Alan and Tracy and the grandkids, Luke and Zoe. Can't wait to give you a big hug when this is over. Teresa Graham, good morning.
Good morning, Damien. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You are a coordinator of Waterford Humanists and a Tramore-based psychologist and a wedding celebrant. The recent CSO, that's the statistics, the government statistics, their marriage stats for last year reveal there's a lot more people having non-Catholic ceremonies. Now, it's still the majority, still 43% of marriages are Catholic and with a Catholic ceremony. But the trend is away from religious ceremonies and towards secular celebrations. This has gone on now for the past 3 years. What's your thoughts on these figures, Teresa?
Okay, they are very interesting. And in 2014, 59% of marriages were Roman Catholic, so that is a big drop. In 2013, 62.5. So that figure has been dropping steadily since, I'm looking at a graph here, 2007 was the high point, and gradually the figures for Catholic marriages has been dropping. The figure for civil marriages has been rising, and the figure for other religions other than Catholic, has been rising slightly. But civil weddings, humanist weddings, spiritualist weddings are becoming ever more popular. And I suppose there's a few reasons going on for this, Damien. The problems of the Catholic Church have been one thing, but there's more than that going on. Because Ireland is much more liberal now than it used to be. And it's not just young people. Because if you look at the two referenda, we have the same-sex marriage and the abortion legislation. A lot of older people voted yes in both those two, which would be surprising for a lot of people. And when talking to couples who are getting married, a lot of the discussion that we have is, okay, why did you choose a humanist wedding? And then we talk about the attitudes of other people, when we're discussing what's going to be in the ceremony. And quite a few young people say to me that their parents are grand with it. And in the beginning, I suppose that surprised me, but as time went on, it didn't. So it's not just young people. And they, again, ask them, okay, why do you choose humanist wedding? And they say, oh, well, we don't go to church at all, even though we were reared in Catholic family or Church of Ireland family or whatever it was. We don't go to church at all, so we think it would be hypocritical for us to get married in the church.
Yes.
And then some people say that, if people are divorced, they can't have a church wedding anyway. And a lot of people who, where there's a mixed marriage of two different traditions, then they, rather than choosing one over the other, they choose a humanist wedding because then they can have the wedding that they want. And that brings me to the other point. In a humanist ceremony, you can have things in it that some priests won't allow in a church. So you can have different music, you can have readings. It's a more, inclusive. It's a more, there's room for more innovation than there would be maybe in a church wedding. And of course, then there's a huge thing around convenience. If you can have the ceremony in the same venue where you're having the meal, it prevents a lot of travel, and people do say that to me as well. So there's a few reasons.
Different reasons, yeah.
Okay, so, some couples are committed to humanism, some are committed to atheism, and that's why they don't want a church wedding. But then there's a whole lot of these other factors going on as well. Now,
the figures show, again, just to remind people, so for last year, 43% of weddings were Catholic, okay? Yeah. Civil marriages, 31%. Next in line, then there was 1.7% Church of Ireland weddings. Now, 60%, so that's nearly 2/3 of opposite-sex couples who got married last year opted for religious ceremonies. So that's still quite a large number, isn't it?
It is still the majority, but there's something that it has reduced if you're looking at 62.5% Catholic in 2013, which isn't that long ago. But there is a downward trend in religious weddings of all kinds. As I say, since the figures I'm looking at are 2007.
Yeah, there is. I know that's true. Yeah,
trend in civil weddings, and that is including the registration office. There has been an increase in that as well, and again, that's for convenience. It takes much less planning to do that than to do other ceremonies.
And in terms of percentage of same-sex couples, so 62%, again, nearly two-thirds of same-sex couples that got married last year opted for a civil ceremony. That's okay regarding humanism as well, is it?
Well, same-sex couples can't have a religious wedding.
Yes.
So, same-sex couples have to opt for a civil.
Well, it says here on the figures that there was 5% of the same-sex ceremonies with other religious denominations. There was 36 of them.
Some will, and spiritualist celebrants are classed as religious, and they do same-sex weddings. But church weddings are out for same-sex couples.
Okay, so that's...
and of course, registry office, you can do the same-sex couples in that, but churches are out for that. And as same as for divorced people, they can't get married in Catholic Church. Do
you think these trends are going to continue, Teresa?
I do think these trends are going to continue as people... What happens is somebody goes, say an engaged couple, they go to a humanist ceremony, some of their friends, or a different ceremony for one of their friends, and then they say, we like this. We like what happened here. And then quite often they would come up to me or other celebrants and they say, what do we have to do this? So this is what happened. I say married, where a couple would get married and then the sister of the bride would get on to me. Or in one case, I did 2 naming ceremonies for a couple of both of their children, and then the sister of the bride, I did a wedding for her, and then their first cousin, I did a wedding for them as well. So I kind of belong to that family now. But Damien, it's going to be really interesting when we look at the numbers for next year.
Well, this is my next question, and where do you think you will be doing weddings? When do you think you're going to be doing weddings again? And there's going to be a massive backlog.
I don't know. Next year is going to be really, really busy. What's been happening, of course, the last wedding I did was on the 13th of March, and I was totally traumatised after because they didn't observe any of the recommendations that were out from the HSE at that time. No weddings in April, no weddings in May. A lot of weddings now in June are being postponed because, like everybody else, we have had to learn to live with the uncertainty. Listening to your programme this morning, everybody's saying, give us a date, tell us when. Nobody except Donald Trump can tell you when. Looking at the different things that are going on in every country of the world, this may happen. They have computer models. But nobody can tell you when it's going to be safe until, of course, we get a vaccine or an antidote to the virus. And you can imagine the brides and grooms, especially the brides, who have been planning a ceremony for maybe 2 years. And then they're coming to, what can we do? Will the hotel be open? Can people travel? And quite a few of the weddings that have been postponed, and a couple of them cancelled for me, have been people who are living in Canada or living in Australia. And they say, we really can't plan on people travelling in July. A lot of people have said then, we want our grannies to be there. And nobody knows when their grannies can be there. So as I say, the figures are going to be really funny on this year because, you have weddings up to March and then, everything drops down. And we don't know when it's going to be that you can definitely have a wedding. We don't know when the hotels will be open, when the bars will be open. And I can't imagine an Irish wedding where you just have a ceremony with a few people at it and then you have a meal observing social distance. And would it be worth the hotel's while to have that? So, again, the one really difficult thing for me has been in this whole process, personally as well as work-wise, is to actually come to terms with uncertainty.
Yes.
And this is the difficulty, I think, that everybody is having.
It is. Teresa, take care. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Damien. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Teresa Graham there, coordinator of Waterford Humanists. What do you think? People texting in about this and about other issues, restrictions. Good morning. My daughter has a boyfriend for 1.5 years and my son has a girlfriend of 3 years. They haven't seen them since restrictions came in. They get very annoyed when they see other people their age out and about and no restrictions in place. Paul has texted in to say he'd love to see the City Council remove car parking on the South Quays. Another person is texting about autism and children with autism and disabilities. We should be talking about that. We did something on that in the last few weeks. We're going to do something on it again later in the week. Could you please say hello to Dan from my dad, Richard O'Brien. Happy birthday, 72 today, from Pam, Keane and Ryan. We love and miss you very much. Damien, I work daily in the city centre. I'd like to say thanks to the teenagers who, for the most part, have been absent from the city centre. Well done. And please wish a very happy 16th birthday to Luke O'Brien, Clune Road, Ferrybank, from Mam and Dad, Caroline and Bernard. Your brother Mark, and not forgetting Jasper. Cool hand Luke hasn't a patch on you. Now keep your texts and comments coming in. We live very close to the Greenway in Bilberry. We're amazed at the amount of people, often in large groups, who are walking, cycling and driving to the area. It's never been as busy. Many cars parking in the area and the occupants gone sometimes for hours, definitely beyond the 2 kilometre limit, says this texter. Another texter, I was at a humanist wedding last year. It was very nice, says this person. Found it nicer than the church wedding, and the bride and groom, the words meant so much. Can you please play the new song Hurricane Highway for Anne O'Brien? I don't know if I can play that before the end of the programme, but hello to Anne. Now, one man who's really got amazing stuff doing is Frank Quinlan, the runner. 21 kilometres for 21 days. He started on April the 14th. He's only a few days left to go. I caught up with him yesterday afternoon, and he's going to be finishing hopefully on Bank Holiday Monday. Frank Quinlan, an amazing man, an amazing charity. He's running for Pieta House. You can check it out on Facebook, and please support him if you can and donate a few bob. So we're here just at the plaza in Waterford, and Frank Quinlan is arriving with his son on a bicycle. Frank is on an unbelievably amazing journey. He's doing 21 days of running, 21 kilometres each day. Frank, you're taking a break for a few seconds. How are you?
I'm in it, Andrew. How are you? Not too bad at all.
What's your heartbeat going like?
It's exactly, it was 140 roughly, kind of all the way down there. Kind of goes up and down with the hills, or the lower, when it goes down hills, it kind of lowers. When it goes uphill, so I kind of watch it, and if it's going up, I can lower down the speed. Then when I'm on the flat, then I go a little bit quicker to make up the time, you know. So
how's your pacemaker?
Good. A little bit shy, but yeah, so far so good. This is my 7th last day, so 147 kilometres to go. So I'm going to break it down day by day now at this stage, and the excitement of having Dylan here with me today, and you know, a friend will come tomorrow, one of the Waterford C members, you know, so, and the more I see it being donated, then the more it's encouraged me to run easier, better. So barring injury now, touch wood, I think I do no problem, you know. So
how's the legs?
Fine, get a nice bit of a colour with the sun. But no, so
and the importance of this for charity. There's so many charities that are suffering at the minute.
Look, the mental health issues that are going to be surrounding this are absolutely detrimental. And as I said before, the only thing to combat is exercise. It'll combat everything, you know. So once you get out, go for a walk, go for a run, just do something to combat it. Because as I said, I'm doing it for Pieta House, but I'm keeping local people are supporting me. So I'm doing it for local charities, and I made sure through Kieran Manny, the Secretary of Waterford AC, he helped me along the way, and a special thank. I wouldn't be able to do it actually without him, but I wanted to make sure the money was being kept in Waterford if local people are donated. And I'm hoping if I get enough money to donate some money to Focus Ireland as well in Waterford, because there's 100 homeless people. Jessica out of Focus Ireland told me. So like as I said, and all depends. I'm hoping University Hospital Waterford, Pieta House, and focus on all the mental health charities, because exercise is the key to life, and the more you exercise, the more you feel good, you know.
Well, it's phenomenal. Continued success. The very best of luck to you.
Thank you very much.
I'll let you get your picture taken with Noel there now, and we won't let your heartbeat get told you're only taking a break for a couple of seconds.
That's all. Look, I'm after doing every single one of them now, around 1:38, 1:37, about 7:30 miles, so all under 100 minutes. I might go a little bit quicker towards the end if I feel good. We'll see.
Bank holiday Monday.
Oh, please God.
And I want to wish Frank and everybody well there. Fair play to him. It's a phenomenal achievement what he's done so far. 21 kilometres, that's a half marathon effectively for 21 days. And finishing on Bank Holiday Monday. So if you see him out on the roads, give him a clap, support him please. And if you want to, go on his Facebook page and give him a few bob, and it's for Pieta House. And well done, Frank. And as you heard him mention, the mental health issues there are very important. Now, one man who was there yesterday was talking to me was Noel Brown. Noel Brown's a photographer, and he's been working for many years around Waterford City and County and doing sports and capturing, I suppose, moments of history as they are. And I asked him about, I suppose, trying to capture the current situation. Noel Brown. Noel, you're just been photographing, taking pictures of Frank Quinlan. An amazing guy, isn't he?
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I've followed Frank for years now. First time I came across him, he was runner-up in the Viking Marathon, but an absolute gentleman man. He's really, really good, and what he's doing this time for charities in Waterford is just amazing. Really, really top class.
You've been taking pictures of Waterford City and County for over a decade, 12 years and a bit before that. How do you capture, or how do you look at the world around us as it is now from a photographer's eye?
Well, Damien, people always tell me I go out and I always try and take a different view of things. I'm never really straightforward in any of my photography. Over the years I've tried to do that, always look for something different. Even with landscape shots, it's different angles, different eye, just trying different things, Damien. That's the way I've done it over the years. Try not go out and just do the ordinary. Try and get something extraordinary, you know what I mean?
And what about the past 6 to 8 weeks?
It's been tough going. I really like what I've done at home on my own Facebook page, is trying to just put up a photograph every night, just something different from scenes around Waterford, wildlife, something that I was always into, love doing, really miss at the moment, really miss. On top of doing the everyday things, the sport and everything else that I do, I love going off early mornings. Love it, really miss it, because I'm really sticking to the 2K. I haven't really moved over the last 6 weeks at all, you know.
So it's not been possible to capture the mood or the desolation?
I've tried that. I've done that, but in sense, there's a lot more. I've seen stuff already, people doing drone footage of it, and it's kind of captures it a bit better than I could actually do walking around. I have done scenes in around the city, but really and truly, like, to really capture it, it's been done already. I still look, I'm doing the photos for posterity. I have them there and things like that, but like, no, not really, you know what I mean? It's kind of, I've done all the shops with the signs and the windows and everything else. I have all that. I have it all for posterity, because as I said, I was only talking to one of the editors of the paper only yesterday. We were talking about it, and I said, this is history, you know, we'll be dead and gone, and people will be looking at photographs of this, you know. Even in this digital age, it's still, people will want to see pictures 30, 40, 50 years time.
Mind yourself.
I will, Damien. I'll do my best, yeah.
Keep clicking.
Absolutely right, yeah. Talk to you again. Thank you very much. All right, bye.
And continued success to Noel and everybody at the papers, the News and Star and the Munster Express. Dungarvan Leader, Dungarvan Observer as well. Lovely message in from Amy from Shades Hair Studio. They've done a beautiful message on their front window display. Thanks everybody for your texts and comments. Thank you, Julie, for producing. Jeff is up next. We'll talk to you tomorrow.